Latino Rebels Radio, right on time. I got coronavirus here. I'm just going to be honest with you, living in quarantine. I just finished a really cool interview on a podcast that we're developing for Futuro Media. Can't say much about it, but it has to do with sports, Puerto Rico, and national identity. So there. So I'm a little bit like, but I'm committed to doing this 10 o'clock Latino Rebels Radio live Facebook. And I am going to bring in someone, to be honest with you, I kind of consider he is. He's like an OG. He was one of my earliest friends online. He believed in Latino Rebels, has been an incredible supporter, and just a great friend. And it's Charlie Vázquez in the Bronx. What's up, Charlie? How are you?
Are we on?
Look, yeah, Poppy's on too. My dad already just put yes. My dad.
Yay!
Yeah, so hi, my dad probably says hi. So we're on. What's Very happening? Cool. How are you? What are you doing? Where are you?
Well, right now, I'm in the South Bronx on East 137th Street. And it's a little quieter tonight, so you may get the occasional, ambulance sirens going past because we're near the freeway here. But over the last couple of nights, it's been getting a little quieter.
Yeah.
But about 4 or 5 nights ago, it was like one after the other, one after the other, one after the other. It sounded like a war zone. We have Lincoln Hospital not too far from here. And just with all of the highway arteries, there were just lots of EMT and fire trucks just blaring through the street. So it's been a little frightening.
Really?
Given the numbers and given how the Bronx is sort of set up to be a disaster zone for this because of, overcrowded housing and just, overall poverty rates. And so many of the residents of the Bronx work in service sector jobs that, don't afford them the privilege of staying home. So even though I think we rank third of the 5 boroughs in total deaths, but the mortality rate in the Bronx, I believe, is the highest of the 5 boroughs, given how many people are being testing positive.
Yeah, and what's the mood? I mean, what are people like? What's the mood out there? Like,
There's 2 words that come to mind. There's denial, and there's resignation. So that's because you don't see a lot of people when you go out generally. Today, we took a walk to Randall's Island just because we hadn't been out in a while.
Right.
And people are jogging, and they're in denial. They're not wearing face masks. I don't want to get into demographics, but use your imagination.
Let me guess.
Randall's Island is a very popular place now. So there's like refrigerated trucks there parked where allegedly there's like bodies being stored. So all of it's just out in the open. There's just a lot of, I know you spent time here in the Bronx, Julio, when you were little.
Yeah.
But I remember living here in the 80s. I left in 88. And just the, wave after wave, first it was heroin, then it was, cocaine, then it was crack, then it was AIDS and the fires. And, so you had like all of this devastation over an extended period. And this just, when the city comes to a standstill, when the economy comes to a standstill,
right,
the city follows it. And you already have such an income disparity gap here. We're a few miles away from where I'm sitting. Some of the richest people in the world are living, and then you walk 2 blocks from where I am, and there's homeless people who are trying to, get change from cars that are coming to a stop on the highway.
So you already got corrected by Noel, by Joan. It's Karen Island. Was it Karen Island or Randall's Island? You said Randall's Island. You're saying Karen Island.
We were on Randall's Island. Oh, he's doing one of his Karen jokes.
Yeah.
Karen Island is definitely it. Watch out for the jogging Karens will kill you because they're just too good to wear masks. But,
okay. So continue, but I just had to bring that in because obviously.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
And we also got a lull from Priscilla Hernandez because of the Karen Island comments. So there you go. You got fans. People are watching you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I try to promote my stuff. But anyway, I'm just at this point, to tell you the truth, I think we're hitting a really devastating plateau. So it seems like the numbers of deaths in New York went down to like 671 a couple days ago. And then yesterday they went back up by almost 100. So I think we're going to see this, 600 to 700 to, somewhere in there. It's going to bounce around until it starts to come down the other side, and I'm just waiting for that because it's scary. It's definitely scary.
No, that's what I was thinking. I mean, it's really scary. It's everyone's in. I want to say denial, but you kind of this is like week 5 or week 6 for people being inside and knowing that people have to go outside, and obviously the privilege of staying inside. What are you doing? I mean, you were, I've been following you. I would say we reconnected. It just is we're one of those like type friends who, when we see each other, it's like we just saw each other like yesterday, right? Like, so like we stay in touch. You've written, I mean, you knew about the early roots of LR and just believed in it. And I've always like been grateful for it. And, you have a lot of fans, and like, the fact that my dad's watching right now is like so cute. But besides, how are you dealing? I guess the word coping is so complicated, because I think coping can have a lot of privilege to it, and it's almost like surviving basic instincts of like, how are you getting through this? Or even you as a writer, because I know you're like me, you're an observer of people. You love connecting with people. You love to talk to people, but you like to observe. You're like me, like, when I hang out with you, you're always looking around like me. You're like, what's that person thinking? Or like, what's going through your mind these days in all this?
Well, I've been, like I said, I've been down with Ayuang at his house on 137th Street most of the time. But I wasn't able to get up to my mom's, up on Allerton. I've been having to check on her. So the first time I went, I took the 6 train from the Hunts Point stop to Parkchester and then walked like a mile just to not be on the subway. And when I did the round trip 3 days ago, I walked 4.7 miles one day, stayed in my apartment, and walked the same 4.7 miles the next day to get here, just because the subways are like this germ trap. You've seen an extraordinary, a really high number of MTA employees who have gotten sick and have died. So that's just to show you how I'm sort of contending with my daily routine. And I am privileged enough to be able to, because I have savings, to not have to go out there. But for most of my life, I had those jobs where in these circumstances, I would have had to go to work in restaurants or wherever else. So, I kind of can see that from both sides. As a writer, I've been working on some projects I've put aside for a while, so I don't want to get too into that. But the first 5 to 7 days, I was so distracted. All I could do was get on Twitter and read the news, because I was trying to absorb trends from Italy and China. And it's like,
I think we were all like, I think people that had access to information were just kind of trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And I do think like it was becoming like, I wouldn't say it was a game. It was like, what's going on, right? So so that was one, like, right?
Trying to figure out like what's to come, because China was like, a month or two over here, and then Italy was sort of behind it, and there's others also, but those seem to be like the most devastating fatalities. So I was doing a lot of that just to see what was coming down the road. But the thing is that, writers, no one's convening right now. So I did see some stuff online that I thought was cool, even though we've been hearing that Zoom is sort of a complicated platform. Like they think that there's hackers that are accessing it or whatever. But
anti-Semites showing up, Nazis showing up to like synagogue gatherings. I'm like, why not?
You're screwed.
That's so
like you're screwed.
crap.
You're screwed anywhere you go.
Yeah.
But I know like Kapiku and the other collective La Cocina, which is sort of a splinter group from there. I've seen some of the poetry collectives, which meet more often anyway. They're kind of more social, doing the online platforms and online readings, which I thought was pretty cool. But I think that we're going to hit a wall with this online
I think
engagement.
we're right. I mean, as meta as I'm saying, we're doing a Facebook Live right now. I'm not doing this forever. You know what I'm saying? It's like this is good for like a couple of weeks and see what happens. But are you reading? Are you writing? Or are you looking at this through a literary lens, or even like thinking about? Because one of the things that I'm trying to do with the show once in a while is not just be like, "Hey, how's it going in the South Bronx?" But like, how does creativity, how does writing, how does reading, is it something that people should be thinking about, like in this day and age? Like, because what I'm finding is like, after like a week or two of information crush, I'm turning everything off.
Yeah.
I'm putting music on. I'm coming up at 10 o'clock at night just because I want to see friends now and do this and practice my craft. So I'm trying to be more creative. Are you doing anything, or do you know, I'm just curious.
Yeah, no, I've been doing lots of work. So, on the professional end nowadays, I've been consulting. So I have a contract coming to an end actually tomorrow with the health department. And then a new possibility that we're kind of in the bidding phase where we're bouncing documents back and forth. So, and a lot of the consulting work I do revolves around writing, data collection, storytelling projects, etc., poetry projects. So, what I tend to do on my own anyway has now extended into what I do professionally. So there comes a time where I have to like shut down one project and then go, okay, what's Charlie's creative writing project aside from the paid work? So no, when this hit, I was about to go into promotional mode for the new short story collection, which it took me like 10 years to finish.
Wow.
Anyway, but that's on hold. We'll be getting back to that.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear more about that.
I'll show you. I'll do a cover reveal a little later.
Oh, but, very nice.
I put another book on hold to finish that one. So I've been working on that, and it was good, especially for the first those first intense 8 to 10 days. It's kind of a thriller that's set in Old San Juan. So I was able to use like this frantic energy. I was able to infuse it. But no, what it made me think of, Julio, was like when I started writing, we were at the peak of the AIDS crisis in the early to mid 90s. It feels similar to that in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
In 1992, when I came out as a queer person, there was none of these drugs that we have now that make it just a manageable condition. None of that existed yet. And, it was pretty much, in most cases, a death sentence. So I sort of entered the underground, gay scene while that was sort of cresting, So I think that the same urgency that I'm sort of picking up on as a sensitive person, what I'm feeling now is really similar to what happened back then.
Wow. It's interesting.
The kind of stories I'm writing are different, but it's still in fiction you want to infuse the text with tension. Tension is what drives fiction. So it's hopefully it'll work. But then I had to think, after we talked about doing this, like I thought about A Death in Venice and all these other really pivotal works of literature that had a big impact on me as a young reader, and how plagues have factored into they've been sort of ever present in storytelling, from the Bible, I'm sure even older than that, through all the stuff that we, all the old white men that we are made to study, and others.
They're fantastic, Charlie. Come on, they're like the best writers ever. Don't you know that?
Well, maybe in their time. But I think our generation's job is to sort of build on top of that.
So diplomatic of you. I'm trying to poke at you, and you're just like being classy, Charlie. You're being classy.
Well, wait till I finish this beer. And no, but
I got another 15 minutes. There you go. I got another 15 minutes.
You have 15 minutes?
No. So let me ask you this: did you follow the American Dirt thing? Have you followed Dignidad Literaria? Have you followed, because that felt to me like the hot story before, at least in like Latino literature circles, was the hot story before, like, COVID. And I never really talked to you about it, and I was just curious what you thought about it, because at the time, because what I thought about was, if this came out like at the time of Rebels in 2011, we would have been writing about it, but no one would have been paying attention. You know what I'm saying? It was like, oh yeah, it would have been like very niche, right? It would have been very like, I think, writers talking to writers, which is that community, which I think is very important. But to me, it felt like, wow, like all these issues of representation that we were trying to like look at, like they really came to light pretty quickly. And I never really asked you, because then there was a contagion, and then I'm not in New York anymore, and I don't see you. But I have seen you in New York the last couple of years. So what do you think about all that? Tell me what's up. What do you think about it?
As a fiction writer, I think that there's two conversations that need to happen, and I think that the backlash certainly was deserving. And as you said, in terms of representation, why is it that so many Latinx, Latin American, or whatever, Latino writers, there's so many of us out there that are cranking out books. Why is it that this lady who suddenly appears on the scene with this vague Puerto Rican grandmother, why
did you just say vague? You said vague Puerto Rican grandmother. That's like a bad name.
It's like, really, like, it's just, the whole thing sounded so like, I don't know. But I'm going to be honest. As a fiction writer, I will never let anybody tell me what I can and cannot write.
I know, that's what I asked you, because you're someone who's like,
fiction is a domain of imagination and possibility. When you take things to the publishing level, and you're pouring money into projects that are sidelining and sort of sidestepping, people who are doing the hard work, people who've been doing the hard work, but privilege sort of is preferential to privilege. So it's problematic on the publishing industry side. But I think that Janine Cummings, or whatever her name is,
that's
she
her
had
name.
every
Let's,
right.
Let's be nice. That's her name.
She had every right to inhabit those characters and wonder what that was like as a writer. So, I'm on the fence. I know that's not my point of view, may not be popular with a lot of people, but some of my most favorite books were written by people writing through the eyes of people who are very different than they are. So, it's conflicting for me, but I think that the positive thing that came out of this is exactly what you said. It's demanding better representation, and I don't know exactly what that entails, because I sort of withdrew from the whole publishing industry after miserable attempts at trying to find agents and stuff for my work. So I'm going back to I'm basically paying copy editors and designers to help me make the best book, the best professional book I can, and do it on my own. So it's complicated. I'm going to tell you this. I was in the Strand bookstore around the time that was blowing up.
Yeah.
And I saw the book next to the checkout line, and I was like, I have to look.
Oh, I read it. I want to hear what you say. I read it.
I read like halfway down the first page. And from the minute that story starts, there's like, her 8-year-old son is standing next to the window, and a bullet comes through and barely misses his head.
Right.
So, the crafting of it to me seemed really, I didn't read enough into it to make, to have an opinion like you do, but it seemed well put together, and so many people, including Sandra Cisneros, which I was so surprised.
It's such a controversy. That's my whole thing. I think one of the things that I struggle with it, and I agree with you. I mean, no one's going to tell an author to write, but I think there's a mass market for it, right? And I think that's part of this problem. But I did read it, and to me, it felt like, if you like glorified narco novellas, that's your book.
Oh.
It's not. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's your book, and so I was kind of like, not my cup of tea. I understand. I do think like something like Dignidad, because I was thinking about Dignidad Literaria because I know the people that are involved, and I talked to Miriam Gurba, who gives zero fucks, which I love about her. And I had this great interview with her, and I'm really happy that they're getting the attention. But it reminded me of a lot of people in the past, like even when we were trying to do like Latino Lit at the time, to be like this about representation. It just feels like it builds and it builds and it builds. And to see, what I wanted to tell you is just like to see something like that everyone's been talking about all of a sudden become like, yeah, this matters. But it took so long to get there, right? And it's still like hard. So I just wanted to get your final thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's pretty much my final thoughts. I don't know that I'll be reading it, but I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens again, because the publishing industry is going to be so desperate to survive that they're going to publish whatever they feel is going to get optioned, film rights. And
so this is what, so I think this is what I want to ask you. It's like, do you think like the creativity, when you talk about like, this reminds me of when I was writing during this, the AIDS crisis and this tension. Are we going to be seeing like the next great story coming out of the South Bronx, coming out of like, POC communities that might not be quote unquote mainstream? And are you going to be someone who's going to be like seeking those stories out of this? You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like you have taken that road less traveled of like alternative, independent, real voices. You're a hell of a writer. Like, I say that as a friend, as an editor, the contributions you made to Latino Rebels. But do you feel like that even the world of publishing might change because of this in a lot of ways? I know that sounds really...
No, I think everything will change. And I think what we're going to see is in the beginning, especially because, the publishing, you worked in publishing also. It's been, since the 90s when I started learning about it, it's just been like this roller coaster. And then the ebooks came in, and, so I think that this is going to upend everything. Interestingly, I read somewhere on Twitter that online book sales are up. So they're, I think people are stuck at home or they're safe distancing.
Hunger Games, ebooks. Come on.
I guess.
Lord of the Flies, Hunger Games,
So I think it will. I think publishers are not going to have, they're going to have even smaller publishing budgets for a while, which means that they're going to have less money to take chances with. So I think we're going to see a genre of work that's inspired by COVID-19, maybe not directly, because it just came out of nowhere. It seems like. I mean,
but I think the feelings of isolation, the feelings of mental health, the feelings of relationships, connections. Like I think we're seeing people. I think the next great piece of our lifetime is probably being written right now. We don't even know about it. Like that's how I feel because of this. But Charlie, any last thoughts from the South Bronx about all this, all the pandemic, life, like?
I mean, other than what I've expressed, no. I mean, it's just you walk down the street here, and you just see so many people at risk, and just the population density, and the overcrowding in the projects, and then you read about the conditions for this virus to spread in, and it's just like a tinderbox. Hopefully it doesn't get that bad, but I don't know. Final thoughts on this whole conversation. I think in terms of
stay close to your friends. Don't forget your friends. Then in terms of literature, and don't go to Karen Park. Don't go to Karen Park. Like people
don't go to Karen Park.
Yeah,
there's it's really icky. It's super icky.
And in terms of literature, last thought.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to have this discussion in a year, Julito.
You're coming back.
I think
you're coming back.
Yeah, I'll come back. I'll come back in a year, and we can recap, because we're kind of in it. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But we gotta.
You know what I'll say, Charlie, about it? It's like I'd like to think that we're part of the vanguard And, we're always going, what's happening next? And so we're already asking these questions. And then you're going to come back in a year and be like, hey, look at these great piece of literature. But listen, Charlie, I love you a lot. Stay safe. I will talk to you soon. Buddy. And enjoy that modelo. Enjoy that modelo. Bye.